Well done guys, well done for making it through to Sunday on our online Impact Weekend. Oh, we're nearly there. The finish line is in sight. You know, your tasks are nearly complete. It's time to finish and rest very soon. If you don't know me, my name is Jonny. I work for the Northwestern Baptist Association, supporting youth workers and churches across our Baptist network. And I'm responsible for running this weekend, and I'm a local church leader as well. So how's this year's Impact experience been for you? And I know, it's not nearly as good as running around and climbing trees at Quinta, is it? But these are strange times we're living in, aren't they? I mean, will things ever get back to normal? Or is this the future? Is this how it's set to be forever? Who knows? One thing we can be certain of is that God's love and promises for us have never changed. And that's what we've wanted to share with you this weekend. He is still walking with us in the good times and the bad. But I hope that you've enjoyed the various challenges we've set for you this weekend nevertheless, and the chance to catch up with some of your friends virtually, if not in person. I also hope that you've been paying attention to our themes over this weekend too. And if you've missed anything this weekend, or you're not quite sure what we said before, then you can always go back over these videos again, go back through your booklets and ask your youth leader, what on earth was that about? Remember how Anna on Friday night showed us and helped us to understand some of the taskmasters that we have in our life. Remember how Pete on Saturday, he showed us what is needed in God intervening in our lives and in our times of trouble. Remember how Susie has shown us that there's a great escape from the things that have enslaved us in life. Remembering how God did that for the Israelites as they escaped Egypt, and how God has done it for us, again in a kind of new exodus through what Jesus has done for us in his death and resurrection, so that we can now enter and know a new life with God, where we are no longer slaves to the things of this world, but we are free to fly and soar in friendship with Father God. Wow, what a journey. And what a promise for us that God has rescued us from the things that hold us back in life. Today I want to share with you how we live in that freedom. Today I want to tell you about a command in the Bible, a principle that gives us life and ensures that we never fall back into slavery. That principle, that command's called Sabbath. So let's pick up the story again from Exodus, soon after escaping Pharaoh and the taskmasters in Egypt. Having miraculously somehow crossed the Red Sea, God's people found themselves at the bottom of a mountain called Sinai. There they set up camp, and Moses went up the mountain to meet with God. On that mountain, God gave this message to Moses and his people: "You yourselves have seen what I did in Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings." Oh, what a great picture language that is. I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now I'm making a new covenant with you. And then God gave them the 10 Commandments. If you've watched the epic film, The Prince of Egypt, you know, the one where they sing, "There can be miracles when you believe." The story shows us Israel's oppression under the Egyptian taskmasters and how God intervened and provided an escape for Israel. And this is where the film ends, with Moses coming down the mountain carrying the 10 Commandments written on tablets of stone. Or if you've not seen it, find it, watch it. It's a great film. But you know the 10 Commandments, right? Don't steal, don't kill, don't lie. But did you know that there's also a commandment to stop working and rest? Why would we need a commandment to tell us to rest? It's easy, right? Once a week, we are commanded by God to down tools and rest. It's a principle called Sabbath, which literally means stop. We see even God doing this at the beginning of the Bible. In 6 days, God created all things, it says in Genesis. And then on the seventh day, he rested. He Sabbathed. And he called that day holy. So the command goes something like this in Exodus chapter 20 in the Ten Commandments. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or your daughter, not your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the foreigner within your gates. For 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested in the seventh day. Therefore, the command says, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Well, that's an easy command for us to keep, you might think. But actually thinking about it, it's probably the commandment I'm most likely to break. I don't know about you. But what's the big deal? Sometimes there's just a lot of work to do. Or you've got a big deadline. You might think, well, it's got to be done. I'll finish it on Sunday, right? Being busy and hurrying around or simply not stopping is one of the biggest challenges we face in our modern world. Especially now we live in a world and a culture where everything is now, instant, faster, and 24/7. Don't get me wrong, I'm pleased to still get my emergency shopping done on a Sunday or turn on the TV whenever I want to watch whatever I want. But the problem is that we are increasingly living in a world where we are not only consuming more and more, but we are being consumed by the culture ourselves. Let me explain. The average amount of time spent on a mobile phone by an 11 to 16-year-old is 3 hours and 20 minutes a day. And actually that's not including the time spent in front of other screens or devices. And that's probably even higher since lockdown happened this year. Research by the ChildWise report says that this kind of technology can dominate young people's lives. The need to touch our phones several times a day, to check our social media posts, to check out how many likes and comments we're getting. It's stronger than many addictions to drugs. The constant craving to watch more, to get more, to reach the next level, to scroll a bit further, sucks us into a world of restlessness where we are constantly comparing our lives to the next. And we want more, trying to fill our bottomless void of desire in our lives. And online companies and advertisers, well, they know it. They take advantage of it, and they keep us where they like to keep us. You might think it's fine, it's free. What's wrong with me? Scrolling through social media. What's wrong with me kind of searching the web again and again? That's fine if you know how to put your devices down, to not touch them, to not think about them when they're out of your hands. But if you can't do that, then ask yourselves, does this device serve me, or has it become my master? If you think that anything comes for free, just because you're not paying for it, then ask yourself, am I the product? That's a scarier thought. Sabbath, however, is a way to break those habits of busyness, those habits of restlessness, of tiredness, and comparison to others, which are all the thief of joy in our lives. Sabbath isn't only a command, though, it's a natural rhythm to life, a rhythm of working well and resting well. I mean, have you ever tried to work continually on and on and on from break of dawn until late at night, day after day? You know, it's just not possible. Eventually, we just stop functioning. Our bodies and our minds cannot keep up. The rhythm of Sabbath, 6 and 1, has been proven to be the perfect balance of work and rest for the human being. You know, we're not made to be slaves, but to live free and fulfilled lives in a rhythm, a natural rhythm of resting well out of our work and working hard out of our rest. And if you think you don't need this, if you think you can just keep going no matter what, then think again, because if you don't catch up with Sabbath, then Sabbath will eventually catch up with you when you crash and burn. Think about it. You know, even God rested on the seventh day. How can we do any more than God? It's as if God knew what he was doing when he created us. And later he had to command us to remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. How do you keep a day holy? Well, it means setting time apart to remember our Creator. It means setting time apart to enjoy living life with him and with others. To learn to live our lives in the moment as an act of worship, whatever we're doing. As Paul says in Romans chapter 12, that doesn't mean that we need to necessarily spend the whole day singing songs and desperately praying on our knees to God, although they're good things to do in church sometimes. It's right to do those things, but simply embracing what God has and has done for us is the best thing we can do for him. That's what Sabbath rest is all about. Not becoming so well adjusted to the culture around us that we fit in with the busyness without even thinking about it. No. But by fixing our attention on God. That's how we'll be changed. That's how we'll find this rhythm of work and rest and work. Most religions, you know, say that you can find God in a holy place. But here is a principle of Sabbath, which says God can be found in a time of the week, in a day, the seventh day. We're invited to come and meet with God every week. So back into our Exodus story, and after God led his people out of Egypt, they spent 40 years wandering the desert before they could enter into the promised land that God had for them. And by this time, it had been so long that Moses had to remind them of God's commands again. And so we read later in a book called Deuteronomy that Moses says this: observe the Sabbath. Or in other words, make sure that you always practice this resting rhythm. There's a subtle difference in this command compared to the one that we read in the book of Exodus. And 40 years later, in this command, God here adds, remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. It's as though these people needed reminding that Sabbath is an act of resistance against falling back into the kind of slavery their parents experienced and lived in Egypt. Sabbath as resistance. I like that. Vive la résistance, as a French might say. How easy it is when we're not paying attention to what we're doing to fall back into the hands of our taskmasters, to fall back into old habits and old ways. Sabbath rest shows us how to resist the temptation to do this, to run ourselves into the ground and to learn how to say enough is enough for me. To find satisfaction and contentment in God where material things just can't satisfy. And it even goes as far to interrupt the consumer culture around us. By observing Sabbath, you can counteract the relentless way we strip our earth of its natural resources and we keep others enslaved to our fashion trends. You know, through Sabbath, we learn to say, do you know what? I don't need any more. More clothes, another pair of shoes, more stuff. I have enough. You know, there are always taskmasters waiting to enslave and oppress the weak and most vulnerable in this world. If it's not us, then it's someone else. And we have to stand up against that. That's a matter of justice. We have to stand up for what is right in this world, including demonstrating Sabbath as resistance for others who are enslaved. You know, in Jesus' day, it wasn't only the Roman Empire who were the taskmasters for the Jews, but even the religious leaders oppressed the people with the laws of God. These laws were never meant to be to enslave people. They were meant to bring freedom and a way of living that helped us to be free and rested. You know, there was this one time where Jesus and his disciples were walking along some wheat fields, and some of the disciples began to simply pick and eat some corn. When the religious leaders saw this, they condemned the disciples and said, you know, what you're doing is unlawful on the Sabbath. Jesus knew how to answer them, though. And he said to these Pharisees, the Sabbath was made for people, not people for the Sabbath. And somewhere else, in a similar account, Jesus says, you know that God says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. The Sabbath was made for people, not the other way around. You know, we aren't bound by God's law. It is a platform to live freely. It's up to us whether we choose to live freely on it. The religious leaders had missed the point altogether, and they were heaping laws upon people, law upon law upon law, to keep them down. Whereas actually God's laws are there to give us freedom. You know, Jesus did and said things like this so often to show us the way that God actually wants us to live. You know, one time when speaking to the crowds in his local town, Jesus, the rabbi, said these words. He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Jesus isn't talking about how he likes his eggs in the morning. No, that's not the kind of yoke he means. He's talking about, you know, the kind of mantle. It looks a bit like this, or a harness that you would put on an ox or a horse so that they could pull the plough. It's an old farming thing. Rabbis or teachers in Jesus' day, they would heap lots of learning and requirements on their students before they could be worthy of their own masters. But here Jesus is saying, come and learn from me. Be my apprentices, be my disciples, and you will learn how to manage both work and rest well, which will feed into a life of good self-esteem, of feeling worthy enough, of feeling like you are enough. When Jesus said these words to the crowds, he knew that he was speaking to a weary people who were being oppressed and harassed by the taskmasters of their times. Yeah, and Jesus is telling us he is the master to follow, but he is not a taskmaster. He doesn't require us to do more, to work harder, or to be more than we are in order to earn his love and affection. We already have it. There's great freedom in realizing that we are already loved by Jesus. So if you're tired from trying to earn someone's approval, or to live up to someone else's standards, or to compare yourself to the next person, don't let your life film be compared to somebody else's trailer. Come and find Jesus. And come and find your rest. Jesus' words speak even louder volumes today in our busy and fast culture and society. We're a society that needs to learn God's rhythms of work and rest. You know, I have this bag here and I carry it around pretty much everywhere I go. It's my work bag. It has all the things I need to do for the day in it. The busier I get, the heavier it seems to be. You might have a bag like it too. Through walking closely with Jesus, we learn to walk in a more healthy rhythm of work and rest. And our burdens, which sometimes feel just weighty and heavy, become lighter when we learn to put the bag down, when we learn to Sabbath. You know, someone else has translated Jesus' words like this, and I'm going to finish with this. Listen carefully. Are you tired? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. May you know the joy of God's Sabbath rest today.